My name is Emily, and for as long as I can remember, I've wanted to be a writer. As a kid, I read books voraciously. I spent hours of every day in dreamland and eventually started filling notebooks with stories of my own. At 11, I decided it was time to quit slacking and finally write a book. I've been hooked ever since. While I always knew I wanted to be a writer, I was very intimidated by the obstacles that stand in your path when you're pursuing a full-time career as an author. I rationalized that I would go to school and study something practical and that I would continue writing on the side. But as any university student knows, there is very little free time on the side. And so I spent the 4 years of my undergrad hardly writing at all. 4 years went by and I wrote almost nothing that I was truly proud of. Suddenly, graduation was upon me, and I realized that I had spent 4 years neglecting my passion and still didn't feel any closer to knowing what I wanted to do career-wise. I realized suddenly the futility of my plan. I couldn't neglect my passion any longer, and I needed a way to get out of the creative funk I had fallen into. So naturally, I decided to challenge myself. Ian Fleming wrote the first draft of James Bond in just 3 weeks. In 21 days, he composed a skeleton draft of what would become one of the most famous spy novels of all times. When I learned of this technique, I knew I had to try it myself. However cool, I recognized 2 flaws in doing the Fleming method myself. Firstly, a skeleton draft was not what I wanted to produce. I wanted to write something that at the end of the challenge I could hold in my hands and know I had finished in total. Secondly, I didn't have 3 weeks. In fact, all I had was the last 2 weeks of summer, minus the weekend in between those weeks. So I decided to work with what I had and developed my very own Fleming method, the Hepditch method, if you will. I decided I would go out of town and write an entire 80,000 word manuscript in just 10 days. Here's how I did it. Before the challenge, I spent some time plotting the novel. I settled on a psychological thriller set on the south coast of Newfoundland. When 22-year-old Hannah Fitzgerald returns to her mother's lonely saltbox home to help prepare her for the transition into assisted living, she makes a gruesome discovery in the family attic that leads her to question everything she's ever known. I figured a suspenseful, psychological plot would be interesting to write while giving me some room to play with stream of consciousness. I quickly fell in love with the characters, the story, and couldn't wait to get writing. I gave myself 2 rules for this challenge. The first rule was that I could plan in as much detail as I wanted prior to starting the challenge. Secondly, once I started writing, I would not be allowed to go back and edit what I had written already that day. I would have to save all editing, all revising until the end of the challenge once the first draft of the manuscript was written. To do this, I outlined each chapter in elaborate detail. I made a beat sheet of every chapter and every scene so that throughout the challenge I would never end up with writer's block. I knew exactly where I was going every single scene. This would also help with potential fatigue. If I got sick of writing one scene, I could always jump to another without losing my place in the former.
Okay, so it's the night before the challenge begins, and I'm not sure how to feel because I don't know how this is going to go. I'm feeling cautiously optimistic, but cautiously. I've never written this many words in a day before, but I think I can do it. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling strong. We're gonna go in with a bang.
Finally, I packed up the car and drove out of town where I knew I would be free of distractions. I turned off my phone, put in my headphones, and got to work. My original goal was to write 8,000 words a day for 10 days. That works out to be about 1,000 words an hour, and I had never actually written that amount of words in a day before. However, when I started working and I really got into the appropriate headspace, I realized that it wasn't actually that unattainable of a goal.
Okay, so it's halfway through day 1, and this morning, in 4 hours, I wrote 6,300 words. I don't know if it's just like the novelty of the challenge is exciting me and keeping me motivated, but I'm 6,300 words in. I'm not too tired, and I still have like 3 hours left to go for this day, so hopefully that'll give me an opportunity to get ahead while the momentum is going. But today has been fun so far. I'm loving the story. The method is feeling pretty effective overall. So hopefully I can maintain this kind of intensity throughout the rest of the week. We'll see.
The harder I worked, the more excited I felt, and the more I started to believe in myself. Suddenly, 80,000 words in 10 days did not feel so ridiculous. It felt achievable, and I started to wonder how fast I could actually get this novel out. I kept going day after day, hitting my goal and more. But then around day 4, I hit my first obstacle.
The only problem I've been having is that I'm out of scenes right now to write. I wrote a new scene this morning that I thought was pretty important, so apart from that, I don't really have any other concrete scenes to write out anymore. I'm still going through. I have a nice few chapters that I can go through and kind of add to, but my main concern now is finishing the novel without hitting my word count.
I have never written a book this way before, and I guess I overestimated how many words it would take to write certain scenes. I realized that I had not written enough in the outline to account for the 80,000 word goal. However, I didn't let this discourage me. I decided to reroute, look at scenes that could be developed more, and build on what I already had. I was so fueled by the momentum of the challenge that I didn't let this roadblock discourage me. I pushed on, and I actually think this made the book better. By the end of the 5th day, I had hit 50,000 words. I was on track to reaching my goal even sooner than I had originally planned. I had planned a weekend of camping in between the 2 5-day periods that I hoped would reset my mind and leave me feeling refreshed on Monday when I would return to the challenge. I didn't touch my notebook or my laptop the entire weekend. It was a great break and left me feeling restored. I got back to work. I hit day 6, day 7, and finally day 8. The night of day 8, I found myself at 75,000 words.
So it's the night of day 8. I wrote 6,000 words today, finishing at 74,000. I'm less than 6,000 words to go, which means I think I'm going to finish tomorrow on day 9.
And I knew by lunchtime the following day, I would complete my goal of 80,000 words in not only 10 days, but 8.5.
I'm filming in the bathroom of the coffee shop because I'm too afraid to film in public, but I did it. I just did it. I crossed 80,000 words. I beat my goal. I wrote a book in 8.5 days. I can't believe it. I'm so excited. I'm trying not to cry because I don't want to be that person who cries in the middle of a coffee shop, but I did it. I reached my goal, and I'm so excited.
This will forever go down as one of the most important things I have ever done. This was the challenge that led me to write a book that would secure my first publication. I wrote a book that I'm incredibly proud of for an audience that I absolutely love. But aside from the book, I learned more about writing and about myself than I ever anticipated that I would. I learned the value of looking for your limits. We don't know how far we can go until we go out and search for them ourselves. It is possible to write a book in a month. It is possible to write a book in just over a week. It can be done, but had I not challenged myself, I don't know if I would have known that for myself. I strongly recommend every writer to take on a challenge like this one. It doesn't have to be 80,000 words in 10 days, it can be 10,000 words in 10 days, whatever's appropriate for you and your style. But you do need to hold yourself accountable. Don't rely on motivation, rely on discipline. Motivation is going to make you happy and excited, but discipline's what's going to sit down and actually write your book. If you have a story to tell, don't neglect your passion. Pick up a pen and start writing. You are capable of more than you think. You can write a book in a shorter period of time than you imagined. It's possible. You just have to show up and try. This challenge has taught me so much about being a writer. It's taught me that I can do whatever I set my mind to, and so can you. Stop making excuses. Stop telling yourself lies like you can't do it. You can do this just like I could. What do you say?